Going. Sound on? Oh, you're muted. Do I have to unmute people? So you're unmuted now.
Wait.
Oh, now I hear you.
Okay.
All right.
Is this like Zoom where only one person at a time can talk?
I don't know. I saw it was like panel view and all that. Like for me, it's just like you, and then I'm like a little square in the corner. But I've seen something before where it was like all bunch of squares for each person. So I don't know if the more people that join, it'll like break it up further.
Alrighty.
We'll find
It's
out.
good that you don't have to go back and forth when somebody wants to talk.
Yeah. I talked to Jay, and he said like he'll be able to get us, in for those specialty camps. He thinks the art room might be difficult, but like the library, or even maybe the cafeteria would definitely work because he's thinking because I guess the issue is they have the meal services in there, so they kind of have to be like separate wings. And then he thinks like he'll said like a gym if it rains. He said we could definitely work that out. The only issue is I think we might only be able to get like one, maybe two gyms because they're doing work like on one or two of the gyms. He's got to check Gales Ferry. I think he thinks that they're doing the tiles already, but I don't know how many people how many camps we want to run.
When you say he's okay with the specialty camps, you mean like the Lego ones? Lego, okay, but not like the summer camp ones that we were talking about today.
No, well, that we agreed both of us that it would be really hard for us and him to get everything that we would need to do because like we'll basically have to create an MOU with him for the cleaning. Like, because we'll have to like kind of clean before then his guys would come in and do their normal cleaning to like I guess kind of protect them because I guess he's getting slack from the unions. about the custodians being safe, so he has to watch out for that too. I don't think summer school.
Does that mean we have to pay for the custodians for like the Lego camps and stuff?
Well, no, no. I think like as a protective measure, we would clean the room, like sanitize it, before we come, when we come in, and then when we leave. That
Yeah.
way, like they could wait the 5 minutes, and if they come in to do their normal cleaning, they know the room's been cleaned already to like minimize their risk.
Mhm.
But that I got where he was coming from, and I understand because the guidelines that he has to follow and I have to follow. We both didn't have the same type of stuff because I guess they're not even going to do. He thinks summer camp's going to be virtual because they don't think they can meet the guidelines. But
And that shouldn't be an issue because I'm sure the instructors will clean it. I mean, we don't have to go in and clean it. The instructors.
yeah, how's it going, Lou?
Hey, good. How are you?
Good. All right. Oh, so it must switch for whoever's talking and make them the big person.
No, I think you're the only big one because I see Lou, but she's little itty bitty tiny here.
Well, when she said hi, like on my screen, it popped her face up to the full screen.
It's your settings. So you're on speaker view. What you want to do is change it to gallery view if you want to see everyone.
Yeah, we'll let me change it. Oh, full screen. Maybe that's what I need to do. Or,
Yeah, I don't see it. I don't think it's set up as an option. Did you set this up as a meeting or a training or a conference?
um, I don't even know. The MIS walked me through it.
Yeah, WebEx is a little funny. Like you can do certain things if you have it set certain ways. And I think it's set up to not allow the gallery view. I think you're stuck with the little boxes and then the big person who's speaking. Because I don't even see that option. I use WebEx every day too, so.
Let's see if I can change it. I don't want to mess with it too much and then
Yeah.
cancel the meeting on accident.
Yeah, I think you'll have to do it when you set up the meeting. I don't think you can change it now.
Yeah, because Justin kind of just set it up for me, so I didn't really play with the settings because he made sure it automatically recorded for us.
Mm-hmm.
Make that big mistake because I guess that's essentially the minutes until the clerk opens back up.
So do I need to actually take minutes then, or do we still need those or not?
I think we do have to submit,
Okay.
once the clerk opens up, and we can sign it at our next physical meeting. But this would
Okay.
act as like a placeholder, they said, until we're able to do that. I mean, it's only one thing on the agenda, so it shouldn't be too difficult. I just put summer camp and kept it vague because it's a special meeting. We got Alex. And, oh, here we go, grid view. Oh, I figured it out. It was like top right corner. There's a little one of those dots you can change the view.
Yeah, I didn't see it on mine, but I don't usually use it on my Mac. I usually use it on a PC, so I don't know. I'm in the browser. I don't have the app.
Oh, yeah, I think I'm
Bother
on.
to download it.
Wait, so which one did you click? The grid view, Scott?
Yeah, because then it kind of makes everybody bigger instead of just one person.
How'd you do that, Meredith?
Oh, Meredith, that side.
Oh, you're on mute, I think, Meredith.
Yes, she is.
I hit the video button at the bottom of the screen, Alex. It looks like you might have your back-facing camera on.
Okay. Switch camera.
We're going Ken and Loretta. Yeah, Alex Select. We got 5. That's good. Good quorum.
COVID beard going there, Scott.
Oh, I know. I didn't realize how long it was, so I like saw some people. They're like, "Wow, that's like the seniors saw me at the parade." They're like, "When are you gonna shave that?" I was like, "Well, the barber's been closed, and I've been tempted to do it myself, but it might end up coming all off because I don't know if I have a steady hand to make it look nice." I look like Tom Cruise from the Castaway.
Hey Scott, I'm trying to get into the minutes and it's not letting me even do roll call. Do you know if it's locked or something?
It could be. Lori usually handled all that, so I did this for the first time ever officially.
Because it's not coming up. I've got the member list, but it won't let me mark people as present or not.
Published it. I don't know if I had to do something. It says it's published, the agenda. I'm wondering if I had to do something in the minutes to build it.
I don't know. It might just be acting funny too, because I'm in there though, and I'm using the same computer I usually use, so I don't know what's up. I tried getting out and in, and that didn't do anything.
It says you're in there with me too.
I can try getting out if that helps.
Roll call. Oh, there's like a thing at the top that says roll call.
Yeah, and it won't let me take roll.
Well,
I click on it, and usually it's got boxes so I can click present or absent.
I can do it if worst case.
Okay. It might be a Firefox thing too, because Firefox has been acting funny lately. Let me try on Safari.
Did you actually make an agenda or anything like that?
Yeah, it literally just says summer camp because it was a special meeting. Kept it vague so we can, kind of talk about it without being restricted.
Okay. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Barb, I think, said she's gonna join us. Emailed me this morning and said not to wait. He doesn't think he's gonna make it now.
Tom?
Yeah, something came up, so. She officially put in her resignation, so that would be everybody.
This is it?
Squad? Well, I guess we could start without Barb. I think she emailed saying she was gonna be here.
Yeah, let's begin. She'll jump in once we can.
Yeah, I can change it. All right.
Okay, you want to just take the lead then? I mean, there's not really special topics.
Yeah, we'll call the order and I just click the roll call on for you, Lou, on the.
Yeah, I got it. I managed to get it. I think it's my browser that's acting funny.
All right.
Thanks.
I don't know if you guys had a chance to review I think I sent like a summary of the guidelines instead of the big packet I have to work off of. The lawyer was nice enough to basically summarize the important stuff for us. It's definitely going to be a lot a lot of work to make summer camp happen this year. I don't think we'll be able to do our full, typical summer camp. Me and Monica have been talking. We want to offer something for parents as a way for, childcare this summer. And we do have like some of the specialty camps. I even talked to Jay today, and he'll let us in the school. So we'll be able to take like 10 kids a week for like Legos. There's a STEM Legos. There's a cooking camp that we're doing in the evening that we'll be able to run. Archery camp, a horseback riding camp at their facility. We'd be able to hold a drawing camp and then the Crediflix camps. But we were also looking in the possibility of holding some other camps because our big concern is we don't want to lose our staff, by not hiring them this year and then they're not returning. So we wanted to try and, employ some of the returning staff to be able to retain them. We did crunch and look over some numbers. So we're thinking we could do a few different locations. So for the guidelines, we can only have 30 kids at a facility. With 10 kids in a group. Those kids have to maintain the same counselor, which means we'd actually need 2 counselors for the entire summer. They can't mingle with any other groups. The games are definitely going to be limited because it's, no contact with, they want, each kid to have their own box of crayons for the summer, those type of things. If one group uses the bathroom, another group needs to go in, we have to sanitize the bathroom before the other group of 10 kids could even use it. So we're thinking if we keep it small, it'll be a little less of a nightmare logistically. It's going to be tough to use the schools because they're also, have their guidelines to follow. To be able to get us in for specialty camps, and I talked to them about using maybe the gym if there's a rain day, but then that's only serving 10 kids. Because you can't have 30 kids in the gym at one time, and then they only have that group of 10 to be the only group to use the gym for the entire week. We have to take temperatures of the staff and the kids. Actually, the staff and the kids both have to sign a waiver before camp starts that the OEC has put out. But we were thinking we have the parks, or possible locations could be we could fit 30 kids at Blonders if need be, 20 kids at Clark's and Purdy. We could do 20 at Pfizer, 10 at Highlands if we wanted, and then possibly 10 or 20 at the Senior Center, depending on when we open this back up. And then also we were thinking about the Gales Ferry Community Center would be a good location because that, we could actually hold camp if it rained, maybe we could do some sort of art camp. So we're thinking we did some numbers. If we reduce the hours from 9 to 3 to 9 to 1, and essentially don't have our camp supervisors, we could actually break even on the camp and still hold them. The only issues with that is you're having younger staff basically plan the camps instead of a more responsible older staff member doing the planning for all camps. So that would help. Also, we were worried about the heat too, because these would all be outdoor locations. We'd likely have to bring in porta potties, which is going to be, a lot of cleaning. The added cost for the cleaning supplies. We found a Zep DZ7. It's $80 a case, and it comes. Case is 4 gallons, but 1 gallon of that makes 32 gallons of disinfectant. And it's a neutral one that we could use with the kids. And if you just spray it on and let it dry in 5 minutes, and it's disinfected the surface. And we were also thinking to keep the numbers down because we're worried a lot of the other towns have canceled. The smaller towns like Waterford, Griswold, Preston, I think East Lyme, they've all canceled Stonington. They might be offering also similar specialty camps. But we wanted to maybe offer it to first responders first, maybe essential employees, and definitely residents only, just to make sure we're not getting all the out-of-towners. Even just the past 2 days, I've received a lot of calls from people saying they live in Preston or Lisbon and are looking for camp options because their town is canceled. So I'm worried with the limited number of space that we'll have if we do have some camps. That we don't want to give those to out-of-towners. We'd rather serve the residents first.
Do we definitely have the counselors to man it?
Yeah, so we'd be looking at 2 counselors per 10 kids. Typically, we'd be in a 10-to-1 ratio, but we're looking at 2 counselors per 10 kids instead of the one, for the fact that you can't cross the counselors over. So if you have 30 kids at a facility, when before you could have someone that could, be your swing and go bring kids to the bathroom or, separate it from the group. Now we're going to need them in the group, with another staff. That way they can go separate ways if need be for bathrooms or first aid. And I mean, we have to, there's they're very strict. We want to keep those staff separate, because if you have any staff going in, and like say if I were to go to one camp, and then went to another camp and someone got sick, we would then be shutting both those sites down.
Right.
So it brings the other issue about even the age groups we were talking about. We might not really limit the age group at each site to this is 4 and 5. Another possibility would be if you're in the same household, you go to the same site and you're in the same group. Because if one of those kids comes in contact with someone or becomes sick and they're in 2 different sites or 2 different groups, now you're shutting down 20 kids versus 10 kids.
Yep.
I mean, there's issues.
Scott, you had sent out the survey to, I don't know if it was email or whatnot, about what's the likeliness of parents sending. I assume you got an overwhelming response in terms of interest.
Yeah, actually, we exceeded our free limit. So I have about the maximum responses. So I think it knocked off, we won't see 26 responses out of the 126. But it said, it's kind of split. Would you, if we allowed to have camp, how likely would you send your child to camp? 28% said likely, 13 said or 28 said very likely, 13 said likely, 18 said somewhat likely, but then 7% said neither likely or unlikely. So it was almost like a 50-50 split. And then we asked, would you feel comfortable sending them to summer camp with fewer than 30 kids at a site? It was 17%. Fewer than 50 was 9%. And then whatever number the CDC or local state guidelines allow was 52%. With not sending your camp or unsure was 16 and 15%, so about 30% basically wouldn't or weren't sure if they would send their kids to camp.
Okay.
Which, I mean, with the reduced numbers, I'm sure we'd fill, especially now that things are opening up. If parents are trying to get rid of them right now, and we're getting tons of calls seeing if we're going to have it. There's issues though that I'm worried about is our med admin. We only had so many people certified, and I don't know if we can get more people certified. I'd have to ask if we can really, put out there, if you have any medical issues, you have to go to this site because there's somebody there trained to administer medicine, like an inhaler, or if, someone has an AED med that, needs to be taken in the morning, we need to have a staff that's actually certified to do that. And it's looking like we might only have 2 returners, with that certification at the moment, which also brings us to first aid. One of my worries is first aid. We can start the summer, and if their first aid is going to lapse, they're going to extend it, but only till the executive order, as long as the executive order is in place. So the moment they lift that executive order, that first aid would then no longer be valid. My worry is if he lifts, the executive order July 20th, then the last 2 weeks of camp, all our first aid could be not valid for some of those staff that were expiring this year.
Wouldn't we have noticed though?
You'd think so, but I mean, the way things are going so far, we're getting info and then they're changing it. They're saying they're going to give it this date, and then they do it 2 weeks later. They've actually told us something, and then, for instance, the barber shops, they said they were going to open, and then all of a sudden, the health director found out via press conference that they were not going to allow them to open, the first, and they extended it. So the way things have been going, it's been hit or miss, and they've been changing the guidelines daily.
So in that Baltimore, what you sent out, it seemed like it said that if there's a lapse during the period, that they're not accountable for it, that it's okay. That was my interpretation of it. It seemed like they were saying that if people who have first aid abilities or they're not certified or didn't get reaffirmed the next year, that if it lapse, they didn't have to get it if it hasn't happened already, and if it lapsed in the middle, that it wouldn't be effective. That was my impression of it, right?
Yeah, I'll have to clarify because I think the way it read is like they, like you said, extended it, but I thought it was only as long as the executive orders was in place or the state of emergency. So if he were, then my worry is that when we get to the end of phase two, he might lift those executive orders, which then would also lift that, the void of the first aid needed to be, it would basically uncertify him because the executive order is no longer extending the first aid certification.
That's just headaches for them too.
Yeah.
Then they're going to get bombed with a whole bunch of people applying.
Let's see.
But that would leave us liable, right?
Yeah, and that's my other issue. Because I was worried about new staff, but if we only take returning staff, we'd be covered because they've all would have had first aid either last year or the year before. It's the worry is those kids that, well, the staff that got it 2 years ago, that it's up in June, end of June, that it's getting extended until that executive order lifts. But I can ask because as long as maybe we have one person in each group that took it last year and see if that's
Get some clarity on that, right?
yeah. Because then we can always just make that person's the one person that has to do first aid for that group because they got it last year. Then also we're talking like no shared water containers, so we got to count on the parents to bring like multiple water bottles to camp, especially if we're doing outdoor camp with the heat. We could cancel due to the weather because I talked to Jay. He's willing to let us in the gym, but that's only 10 kids in a gym, and we're limited on the number of gyms. So if it does rain, we'd probably end up canceling a good number of camps. That's putting the parents out when the whole point of this is to be childcare for them. Also, we're worried about games, the lack of content, because what you can do within the guidelines is definitely limiting. Like some of the games we were looking at, we were kind of laughing. It was like follow the leader, like some reading game, and it just didn't sound very fun for the kids.
Well, and that's where, Scott, I think like without sort of a senior, your more supervising staff, you may be in for a challenge. Not to say that brand new counselors aren't capable of coming up with creative ideas within the guidelines, but they just may not be as fluid with it as the folks that have been at it before. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's a definite trade-off.
Yeah, and the whole way we'll be able to run this is without having those three key supervisors that did most of the planning and gave them all those games. Instead, you're basically trusting two staff. They could be, 2 to 4 years experience with us, but as a counselor, not, a supervisor or a camp supervisor, which is also a worry because, we have, the responsible adults because they're going to break the groups up so far.
Well, one of my concerns, and it's only coming from what I've been seeing in my own experiences. You've also got the younger generation that doesn't really understand the importance of the situation as well. So, my thinking, being one of them that has not been out of her house since March 15th, other than my backyard. Now, I know with my 20-year-old, it doesn't click as important to them, so like, oh, well, Susie and Johnny just took a drink out of the same, oh, well, it's not really that big of a deal.
Mm.
You know, that kind of, that part kind of gets me too, 'cause especially the littler kids.
Mm. It's hard. They don't
That's
understand
hard.
personal
They don't
space.
understand distancing. I mean, you know, it's that's little bit of, those are the kind of things that are, I mean, don't get me wrong. If the parent wants to send them, the parent's taking the risk. I mean, I look at it that way myself. But, as long as we're having them sign those waivers and everything, that's keeping us safe, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the state's requiring it. All, even the kids, the staff, everybody has to sign it, basically that they understand, what camp's going to look like and what we're required to do and how to report if there's something that we're not doing correctly. It also brings, like you said, the young staff, we got to trust them to handle all these cleaning protocols.
Yeah, we got to trust them to take this seriously. And I've been to these camps before. I sent my oldest, I sent him for like half a summer. And I mean, it's come a long way, but still, they're young. They're the ones that are flocking the beaches. They're the ones that, we open now, so now everything's okay. That's just, that's a big concern of mine, as well as, are they going to be, without those main supervisors, are they going to be organized enough to make sure every kid has their temperature taken and make sure that all the protocol, because I mean, I know just trying to be venting for my daughter, who was one of those beauticians that were said they could go back to work and then, oh, nope, today you're not going. Never mind, change. I know all the stuff that she, all the disinfecting and stuff like that. And I kind of look at it in sort of the same proximity. We're allowing 10 kids with 2 supervisors that are more than likely going to be teenagers.
Yeah, like 15 to 21.
Exactly. And, I mean, I don't have a child going. I'm just looking at it from, like, if it was one of my kids, or I just don't know. It kind of, everything kind of flows downhill too, if you know what I mean.
So maybe just, so have we kind of gone around the table and just said, so Alex, I know you wrote in your email, like, if there's a way we kind of have, I think with all the noise and all the energy out there, I think there's a desire for us to figure out a way to do this. But given everything we're all hearing, can we go around and get a sense of where is everybody at? Is it, let's find a way to do it? Or are people still on the fence at, like, this just may be too big a hurdle, just to get a pulse of where we're at so we can maybe channel the conversation for the rest of the bit? Because we've already kind of chewed up a half an hour.
Yeah, no, definitely, because, I mean, I want to get your opinion, because I'm surprised my hair is not gray from all the putting I've done over this topic.
See this gray?
Yeah.
I would say I'm on the fence. I think it would be great, but we haven't really gotten any results from just reopening last, or, the Wednesday. So I'm kind of on the fence.
I think for the people who are looking for childcare, I think having it from 9 to 1 isn't really going to do a whole lot of good to do that. I mean, 9 to 3 is already a difficult enough time frame to actually send kids to camp, because it doesn't really fit in with anyone's work schedules. So, I mean, I would love to make it happen, but I just don't see it as a viable way to consider a childcare for the summer.
I mean, for me personally, I'm with you, Meredith. I think a 9 to 1 it's not gonna handle, I think, the big demand. Scott, I love the concept of first responders, but is it just first responders? Where do we draw the line? There may be other groups. As much as I'm a huge proponent of the efforts the first responders are doing, there's some other elements out there too that may need it. So I personally, and I hate to say this because I was originally with Alex, let's find a way to do this. I'm looking at everything. I'm not sure I'm seeing it come together in something viable. But that's where I'm at right now. I'm willing to hear kind of the thoughts about bringing it together, especially if it's got to be 9 to 1. I just don't know that we're there.
If it is 9 to 1, I think it would at least give parents right now that are struggling with trying to work from home, and because I think that's going to continue through the bulk of the summer for a lot of people, at least it would give them a little bit of a break. Because right now, a lot of my coworkers are really struggling trying to manage working from home without childcare because they're trying to take care of their kids. I think if we do decide to go forward, honestly, I think we have to accept the fact that there is going to be some cross-contamination. There's no way to keep kids apart. That's just going to be near impossible. Even I've seen them, like we've been walking around, even just like around here in the streets, and kids are outside, and I know they're not in the same household. They're playing together. They're tossing balls back and forth. I just don't think that's realistic to keep kids from like at a 6-foot social distance. I don't think that's practical. The fact about the first responders, I'm not sure I feel comfortable putting us, the commission, or Scott and your staff in a position to determine who gets to take advantage of the child care or not. I don't know that that's a fair thing to put our department in the middle of. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I get it. And there's a lot of frontline workers out there that need child care, but I don't know that that's fair for us to decide which ones are more important than others.
Yeah, kind of
the other thing I was kind of curious about is if we have to run this I'm assuming we're going to run this at a deficit, do we as a department have the money to absorb it, or does the town have the money to absorb that? Are we in a position to make that decision?
So the way I was looking at it is I found a way to kind of cut costs, and actually I kind of had an idea now, like that we were talking, is we could maybe, I know we were trying to look at getting the most kids in the camp as possible, but I mean, we could shrink the number down and essentially have the 3, summer camp supervisors that were running all 3 camps essentially be the leaders of 3 groups, and then just hire 3 staff to be with them, and then only take 30 kids. That way we have someone responsible, and we'll maintain at least like 6 staff. Offer some minimal offerings, offer something of that we can trust that they'll be able to pull off, because they know all of our procedures and policies, and they're on the older side as far as the age goes. They're more responsible and actually would be able to follow the guidelines. We just limit the number of groups that we have, and maybe just run like one facility with 3 groups with essentially the people that would run the camp. So we're not paying them the extra hours running around doing all the planning, all that. Because I did the math, and we could give them like an extra hour each day, which essentially could be their planning time, and we can afford that and break even. I believe I'll have to relook at the numbers, but that way, I mean, it'd be a very small group that we'd be able to serve, but at least we could say we offered something.
How do you pick those 30 kids?
Not yet.
9 of them are from one house.
1. Yeah, because we do have a family with 9 kids that comes to summer camp every year.
I know.
I mean, that's the hard part, is how do you cut it, and how do you offer fairness? I mean, if it's first come, first in line, we're going to hear the noise that somebody didn't see the announcement. But I do kind of agree with Lou. I would have a hard time saying, let's limit to first responders, or maybe not a teacher who's dealing with summer school and catch up. You know, there's 1,000 different groups out there. I don't know that I'd want to make that call. So in my mind, it's a first come, first serve.
Plus, and I don't mean this in a negative way by any means. I respect everybody that's out there doing everything that they're doing. But when you take on the first responders, you're also taking on, for our counselors, we're taking on a higher risk.
True. Because they're the ones that are exposed.
Exactly. So our counselors would have to be willing to take on that higher risk factor. Like I said, I'm not being negative at all. I'm one of them that is stuck in the house, can't go out.
Alex, Ken, where do you guys stand? 'Cause I think
That's what
everybody
I'm
else.
curious.
I'm I still would like to see a way to get this done, even at a reduced capacity. Um, I agree about the first responders. I think that would be a hard call, but maybe we can do something like a lottery. Making that choice as easy as possible, with or as fair as possible. No.
I like the idea of a lottery or first come, first serve. The lottery is really an interesting idea. Would we do it by household or by child, though?
You probably lose those households that if you only choose one child to come to camp but not the other, they probably won't send them.
Yeah.
Right.
But then if you hit that household that has 9 kids, that's your whole group right there.
That's 1/3 of your camp. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Ken, where are you at?
So I think we need to discuss that. When do you have to make a decision, Scott?
I want to make it as soon as possible because we're waiting on staff, to interview and hire staff, and we'd like to, out of respect for them, let them know if they're going to have a job this summer or not, so they can look elsewhere.
Have you spoken to them? Are they willing to work?
Monica has, and we have at least at the 20 or 25 people that would be willing to work.
Okay.
We were going to kind of throw the guidelines out, though, because we're not sure that they realize everything that would be involved for it this year.
And if I could just say something, so we actually have 26 returning people, and out of that, I just counted, there are eight of those people are at least going into their junior year of college, all the way up to like mid-40s. So, I mean, the majority would be like between 20 and 24, and then there's one person who's in her mid-40s. But the rest are definitely all high schoolers.
Okay.
So if I could just, for logistics of working on WebEx, if everyone mutes, if you're not talking, you should mute because the echo is very hard to listen to people. So unless you want to say something, just unmute yourself. My opinion is I think we should try to have a minimal. And if you have to minimize even less people, I think that's probably acceptable. I think the fact that we can offer something would be great. I think choosing people is very difficult. I think you should just do the traditional first come, first serve. You got to announce it and say, this is happening and this is the limit we have. And then people are just going to have to manage. I think the big thing you have to do is make sure the staff is willing to do this, because as you present it to them, they might start thinking about it and saying, wait a minute, I'm going to be under a lot more possibilities of being infected with the kids. And they may start thinking about it once it starts presenting to them that this is a job you're going to have. But, people want to work. Everyone wants to get back into action. So you may just get all the demands you want. So, but I think you should probably reach out to those folks and saying, this is the guidelines at this point. Are you still willing? And then, I don't know, you're gonna have to make a decision. I think doing 30 and like you said, maybe doing a 3, I'd rather have counselors that know what they're doing because they can adjust quickly enough to all these other rules that are involved. And they're more likely to abide by guidelines and making sure the kids are abiding by guidelines. I think the really onus comes on to the parents too when they sign that document, that they need to make it very clear to their child that this is how you need to be acting at daycare or at the camp. So I think responsibilities of kids staying away and things of that nature, it's really going to come down to the parents really enforcing that and us providing the rules in front of them all the time. So they'll get used to it. I know I'm at Pfizer every day now, and pretty much they've gotten rid of all bringing your own cup. Everything's disposable because if you're pouring from one source, you have a chance of contaminating other things. So kids might not be able to bring things to their camp. It might be just like everything, you're gonna have to buy cups if you're gonna have a local station where you're getting water from. And that's something I'm sure that the state must be talking about, that you can't have like a community cup area.
I know we had a meeting for the fair and we weren't allowed any kind of a community water aspect. It had to be, they had to be like individual bottles that you bought, but like for a water fountain or to use, to go into the kitchen and get a glass of water. We were told and that's all the way out into September. So I don't know if the community water jug aspect of things would be allowed.
Yeah, because I know like what they're talking about for youth sports is like they don't want that water jug. Like they don't want any common source. They want it all individual bottles that you brought, yourself. So I'd have to get clarification on whether or not we could do the cups, like Ken said, to then minimize, outside items being brought into camp.
So Scott, I think the one thing that we're facing is size, right? That's really, I think, one of the bigger questions here. But to, I think, Lou's question, can we find out whether or not the 30 that you've kind of just figured out back of the napkin math, or whether or not, because of some of the other things that have been deferred in town, is there a little bit of extra that we could tap into to possibly stretch those numbers out a bit? Because it sounds, at least Monika, that even if a bunch of those people said no, we still have a reasonable pool of interested counselors as of now, with the caveat that Ken said we need to kind of vet the new guidelines one more time. But I think I'd like to know, where are we? Just could we expand a bit? I think 30 is great. If it could be 40 or 50, I think that would have a nice response to the town.
The way Scott and I figured it out, with all the locations that we came up with, we could have theoretically 110 kids every day for 6 weeks. But I'm sort of leaning like with Loretta a little as far as having enough really experienced counselors that are gonna ensure that the kids are doing what they're supposed to be doing, or not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And then we were like trying to come up with, well, and then there's the rain, whatever. In case of rain, what do we do then? I mean, if this really is, for some people, they're only, so we could only have 10 at a school. We wouldn't even be in the school. We would only use that for rain days. So at this point, we only have the middle school and possibly, and Gallup Hill. And of course, the community center and the senior center. So
Depends on when the senior center opens back up, if it does. So, I mean, I could see 30, maybe no more than 50 kids, I think, safely, and that's dependent on it, what staff. I mean, they also got to be aware that they have to wear a mask at all times. You're going to be running around playing soccer with these kids with a cloth mask on all day in the 90-degree weather. It's not going to be comfortable.
which is actually why, and I was the one who suggested 9 to 1. I mean, if you guys feel 9 to 3 is better, obviously for working parents, that makes so much more sense. But for the most part, the locations we're looking at are all outside, and other than Wanders, the pavilion and the pavilion at Highlands Lake, I mean, you don't really have shade at Clark's and Purdy. You don't have shade at, I forget what the other locations were that we came up with. 6 hours is a long time out there.
Yeah. Could we serve more people by not allowing repeat weeks? So yes, we want to kind of keep our numbers, but could we, rather than, we know many of these families are signing up for all 6 or 8 weeks or whatever it ends up being. Could we limit it to a 2-week max to allow a deeper potential impact into the community, rather than having the family of 9 for 6 weeks take it? It's just a thought.
So just to piggyback on that,
I don't know if a family would find benefit of just 1 week, but
I think that's a good idea. And just to follow on that article that Lou sent out, so is there any potential for a virtual camp? I know it's a big jump.
Discuss
Something where you could have half the kids are going to camp and the other half are doing some virtual stuff, so at least they're entertained. I mean, that's a big ask. I don't know. There might be things out there already that are established that you might be able to grab onto, at least temporarily. But that's an idea. You can alternate kids going to camp and then not going to camp. But then again, if you do that, then you're going to be increasing the numbers of people exposing the counselors, so higher opportunity for an infection to occur. So I don't know. It's 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other, I guess.
It's like everything I've been seeing. It's like a double-edged sword. It's like it has the positives and negatives. To touch on the money, I have an idea that I can ask if they'll allow it. Because we won't have to pay for first aid, that could potentially be about $1,500 if they allow us to use it on staff that we could use to essentially take a loss. And we do have a little bit built up in the special revenue. And we won't want to take a huge loss, but I mean, if it's like $1,000, it won't be the end of the day. We can definitely, I think, support that out of our special revenue fund, based off of the 20% that we earn on the program, during the year. We did get, I think it was like $40,000 moved in last year, which is to help us go self-sufficient. But that was supposed to essentially, carry us through for quite a while. And then with the minimum wage increase, we were kind of counting on that to help, offset raising prices drastically.
I like Shailene's idea of kind of a short duration of 1 to 2 weeks. That would kind of get us around that first come, first serve issue. But also might allow us to kind of look at how the first 2 weeks went and kind of maybe change after that, and maybe build it up a little bit to increase the capacity. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, I look at kind of our role, and what led me to maybe the 2-week or limited week thing is, and we've all said it in the course of emails. Our goal is to try and serve this community as deeply as we can with the constraints that we have. So it just, when you hear 30 and you look at the population or how many kids we would typically see in a summer, it didn't feel like we were denting at all. But Alex, I think you're spot on. I mean, as we get later in the summer, restrictions may lift. We might have a better sense of how those first couple of weeks went. We could expand it. I mean, as a parent, we've all been there with little kids. You kind of want to plan as far out as you can, but I mean, we're in a new reality too. So I think they would be welcomed if we could adapt or expand as the summer went on.
We'll serve 10 kids at least with the specialty camp, and that's an outside company, so it's, you know, less of a worry. They have tons of guidelines that they're going to follow that they've sent us, so we feel safe about them. So if we have 30, there's also that additional 10, so we're really serving 40, and then maybe a few with horse riding camp. But I mean, you're talking like 4 kids. A very small number.
Our typical numbers are what again, Scott? What's our typical summer?
Probably about 270, 260.
I was going to say 300 was what was sitting in my head, yeah.
9% of the normal camp population.
One thing to think about is and I know we want to stay as fluid as possible, but if we do end up, restrictions get lifted and we want to offer a bigger camp midsummer, it's going to be very difficult, I think, to hire staff midsummer.
That's a good point.
Another issue too that I was thinking is, what if a staff quits on us? Then we could be in trouble. If we have these kids already registered, replacing that staff might then be an issue as well. Because typically we have an extra person or two built in for that reason, because you usually have 1 or 2 that end up dropping out for various reasons. But as far as when the money's this tight, you're not going to be able to hire extra staff, and what to have 3 staff with 10 kids really doesn't make any sense. You know, hoping, you know, that just in case someone quits on us. And I don't think anybody's going to want to be on hold. Like, you know, if someone quits, you have a job. But until then, there's, you know, our backup.
No, that's a good point.
Well, I think in that case, though, it's trying times for everybody, and that everyone's, you know, if they're lucky enough to be working, you're figuring it out, and situations are going to happen. And I think we just have to say that we lost a person, and now we can't have these 10 kids here. We can't find someone else. You know, that's going to be something that might have to happen. It's fluid. Everything else is fluid. Why can't we still maintain that fluidity too as well? Because we're doing our best to offer what we can. If you want to open it up and try and maximize as many people as possible, then maybe doing the alternating weeks or things of that nature. But everyone's got to be under the guidelines that this could change next week. You know, just like they could announce that we're shutting down again. And to be honest with you, next summer might be the same situation. We don't have a vaccine in place. We're going to be running through the same trials. So you may not have 2 years in a row where you're going to have people like just a normal camp. Are kids aren't supposed to wear masks, are they? That's not required, or they are?
So the guidelines from the OEC say that the kids are not required to wear a mask in a child care setting, but we did have a meeting with the health directors, and they basically said, yeah, you don't have to wear that mask unless you're within 6 feet of each other. So we don't know if they might then require that. So if they can't maintain that distance, they actually might require on the local level for the kids to wear the mask.
So if you're playing a game of frisbee or something like that, yeah, we would be in mask situation for the kids theoretically, right?
I don't know if it's realistic to think that the kids are truly going to keep a mask on their face all day.
Especially the youngest ones.
Even if it's just that not 5 hours. I get irritated wearing it 20 minutes. It's hot and I'm not outside. I can't imagine a kid's gonna rip it off. It's gonna get tromped on. It's gonna get dirty. It's probably gonna be more of a health risk because it's gonna get tromped on the ground, and then they're gonna put it back on their face. I don't know. That's just something. I know what the regulations are. I know we can't control it, but just something that we have to expect that it's gonna happen. They're gonna rip it off.
It's not just that, though, Lou. Just making a good point is that there's a protocol that's involved with actually putting on a mask and taking it off. And if the kid's touching the mask all the time, it kind of defeats the purpose of having a mask, because then they're touching other items and they're touching their mask, and then they're touching. You're just continuing the contagion if you're trying to avoid that. So I think it would be hard for them. It's hard for an adult, and I have to wear a mask all day at work, and it wears on you. Definitely. And I'm inside in an air conditioned building, let alone being outside 90 degrees running around. So it'd be challenging, and also probably be a hazard. The fact that they don't know how to maintain their hands away from their face, and the mask can be uncomfortable, so they're touching the mask all the time, and just defeats the whole purpose of having a mask. So that's a real problem. I don't know how they're going to address that. As you mentioned, they talked about that they should be wearing that.
From a person that, when I go out of my bedroom, I have to have one of the and whatever masks that has the little special filters. I that's just when I leave my sanitized bedroom and go down to the living room or whatever to spend any time with my family. I can't. I mean, I feel like I'm suffocating. I'm in a house that is, and I'm not overexerting myself. I'm just down there watching television. And it gets extremely hot. So that's going to be a big issue. But one of the other things that we have to keep in mind, I feel, we know what we normally offer for a camp. Now, say the 30 or 50 people or kids that we offer it to this year. Say it gets lifted and we get to get a few more kids. What kind of camp are we actually going to be able to offer them? So therefore, if you offer them, and let me say this bluntly, a crappy product, are they going to want to come back next year? Because now in their mind, you've offered them a subpar program. So that kind of, to me, I think we need to think about that as well. Yes, people realize that things are different. According to what I'm being told, going to the grocery store is, like a maze. But at the same time, there are a lot of people out there that are still expecting exactly what they got before. So when you tell a kid that, oh, well, Johnny and Susie, you can't roll that ball back and forth in your, to each other in your little circles of 6 feet, now they're going to go home complaining, I don't want to go back. I mean, are we thinking about that as well? I mean, you said it yourself, Scott. I mean, crayons, paper, what do we have any idea what we're going to even offer them with the limited contact that they're allowed to have? Are we even going to be able to offer a quality, program?
That's a big worry, because we're still waiting on guidelines as far as like different sports, the modifications they're going to require for like just the youth league, which would also cross over into camp. And especially like you said, for the little kids, that this might be their first year, they're going to have a bad experience. Those are the kids we need to retain going forward. So, if they're having a bad experience, which I don't see it being that typical fun experience with all the guidelines they have in place. It's essentially just meeting a need.
It definitely won't be very much fun. We could try to make it as fun and interactive as possible, but I mean, they're not having the field trips, the in-house activities, the popcorn machine, the snow cone machine, the water days. I mean, every week we had water days at each camp. They're not going to have any of that stuff. And, you know, it's like I was telling Scott this morning, we could have them bring like a beach blanket, put it out 6 feet apart, have them put their lunchbox there and this and that. And at least while they're on their blankets, we know they're okay. But like you look at the popcorn kernels, oh my gosh. I mean, their noses are running constantly. They're not gonna, sneeze into their elbow. They're 4, 5, and 6 year olds. No matter how much you drill it into them, saying that this is what you have to do. It's going to be our staff more than likely that's still going to be wiping their noses. It's, I don't know. Honestly,
And per the guidelines, our staff can't wipe their nose. I mean, I'm going to put it out there. My personal opinion. I just can't see providing 30 children, 50 children with a subpar program. It just doesn't seem, I mean, yes, I understand the breaks and the daycare aspect of it, but still the 9 to 1, that's only going to help the people that are lucky enough. I don't want to say lucky, but that are staying home working. Anybody that's still out there in the public every day, that's not going to help them for daycare. And I'm just going to say that I just don't feel comfortable with us having it this year, especially being so close to the start date and still not having all the guidelines. I mean, we still don't have information that we have to run the programs, but we're trying to make a decision. And when you're used to serving 300 kids, and now you're going down to 30, maybe 50. I just think it would be better to not have a program at all this year than to have a program for 30 kids that those 30 parents are then going to go back and tell the new people that we're going to need to sustain it for the future how terrible it was. Just my opinion.
Scott, what's your take?
For the sake of time that we have, what's the end game for this meeting? Do you need us to vote on whether or not, or
might as well just call a vote. I mean, I can't say I'm not allowed to motion, but if one of you guys want to call a motion, I mean, we could probably just vote. I mean, essentially, we've beat around the bush long enough. I mean, we all
Call the motion.
we know what we're looking at for this summer if we do have anything.
So essentially, the motion would be: do we have camp or do we not? And then, as the information comes in and more guidelines come in, you'll have to decide what numbers you would have and how you would actually set up the program. We've tossed around a lot of different movies, but none of them are definitive until we see guidelines and how you can handle it with your staff.
I agree.
So I think that's about the limit we can have, unless someone else has an idea of how we can define it a little better.
So just to clarify for the minutes, are we making a motion to move forward with camps, or are we making a motion to not hold camps for the summer?
I would say, yeah, either motion to cancel all camps altogether or a motion to attempt, you know,
Right.
something at
It needs to be
all.
one or the other for the minutes. I can't make a
So
motion to decide later.
I hear the motion as a motion to decide, Scott, like you said, do we just stop all efforts to pull together a camp now, or a motion to continue work developing the possibility of a camp? I can't say that we're saying we're going forward with camp. It's a motion to either stop
Right.
or continue to scope it out for a final camp proposal at some point down the road, I think is the motion I'm hearing in my head anyway, but it's my head, so.
So the only problem with that I have is these kids were basically told 2 months ago already when I sent out their letters that they would be, returning. And I've had people calling me, emailing me, wondering what's going on. And I feel like if we're not going to have camp, um, we need to let them know like tomorrow so that they have the opportunity to find other jobs. Instead of like waiting for, another 3 weeks to see if the guidelines change or whatever, and if we could do it a different way.
That's fair, because that's putting
No,
you guys
I
in
hear
a
you,
bad
Monika.
position.
I think it's, yeah.
I
Yeah.
think the motion needs to be, I think we need to make a decision, because if we don't make a motion, we're just staying where we already are now. And that's not the
Yeah,
point.
I agree.
But I think the motion to go forward is still at risk. If we land on the side of let's pursue it, something else
We say
it's not definitive in my head.
we pursue with like the specialty camps and a minimum of 30 kids, so we at least say we're doing something. I think we do. I agree, we need to decide like now, because all the other towns are putting out their decisions, and then parents are waiting on our decision to see whether or not they can use this as an option. Plus the staff, it's not right for them to be drawn out this long time when they could be looking for an alternative job if you would be.
I'm going to make a motion that we forego this year. I just think that's the motion that I'm going to put on the table. That way, now at this point, it's a vote, yes or no.
We need a second first.
Yeah.
Read out the motion you're writing down.
Yep, I've got motion made to forego, and I can change the wording. This is what Loretta had said. Motion made to forego holding any summer camp program I'll put for the 2020 season. Motion made to forego any summer camp program for summer 2020.
So this is including the special camp too, right? Then
That was my question, right? Is it including that?
That's the way I heard it, but we can reword this. I mean, Loretta, if you're willing to amend it.
I think if we're going to cancel, we should do it across the board, because it's not right to just open a camp up to 10 kids. I mean, that's, like just throwing like a sandwich out to the vultures.
but this is special needs kids. Is that what it is?
No, this is just our special camps, like a film camp or a horseback
Oh,
A special
right.
interest.
through a third party, not our staff. I just don't see it being fair having one and not the other. I mean, it's better just to have a consistent message across the board.
Honestly, I don't feel that there's a problem with keeping like the Lego camps and the art camp and stuff like that, because those would be in the schools, and it would be up to the instructors, the contracted instructors, to make sure that everything's being sanitized and whatever they're supposed to be doing. And there would be at least not that it's a huge amount, but basically, every week there'd be at least one of those specialty camps. Plus, the horseback riding camp runs for, I believe, 9 weeks straight. Cooking camp would be she's running that for 4 weeks. Archery they had 2 sessions already scheduled. But yeah, I mean, as long as you guys are voting, because that's the other thing. I mean, these instructors are planning what they're going to be doing for their camps too. And we need to let them know also. I mean, I think that's my biggest concern is that if a decision could be made like tonight, it's only fair to the kids who think that they're going to be working, so that they could go out and start looking for other jobs, as well as the instructors who, already are committed to having these, week-long programs. Because if they know that they're not going to have it, then maybe they'll, try and reach out to other towns or whatever for the weeks that have now been freed up.
Just
I agree. I think given that we need a decision, but I've got a question philosophically on the other camps. It's like any other program in our brochure, honestly. Are we going to set standards that these individual instructors, I mean, what makes a camp for a 3-year-old run by us any different than the set of criteria, other than it's an independent instructor? And if it's an independent instructor, then what does that mean for Russ's rowing? Or, have we taken a decision on how we're handling the rest of those? And that's where my mind is around the clarification of wording around specialties.
Just the FYI for that, it actually would come back on us because I talked with the superintendent today, and we would be signing an MOU basically for any of our programs that are in the school, promising that we will sanitize it. So if that instructor doesn't meet those expectations, we're actually signing a document saying that we're going to, meet the standards of the school. And if the instructor doesn't, it's not going to come back on the instructor. It's going to come back on us. It's our name and our department on the document.
Okay, that's helpful clarification, Scott. All right, so Loretta, where are you with the motion then? It's everything?
I mean, that's just, if we're going to be, if we're liable when it comes to the school, I would say to add those in as well as not having those either.
To make things easier, so what they're considering, we could say anything that would be considered a camp program under the OEC guidelines, because if for some reason they open things back up and we're allowed to start having programs, that would be different. The OEC is considering any camp program as a program that runs through a mealtime. If the program does not run through a mealtime, it cannot be considered a camp and apply the OEC guidelines to it. And it would actually, at this moment, have to apply to the no more than 5 people in in an area rule that's currently in effect. These guidelines are, only accepting an exception to the executive orders if it runs through a mealtime as a child care opportunity. So we wouldn't really limit, if they open up programs, say, very end of July, like we could still offer our programs, which also brings, worry with some of our specialty camps. They would probably have to make adjustments looking at it, because not all of them run through a mealtime, which means they wouldn't meet the state guidelines as a camp. So they would have to extend it an hour and offer a breakfast or a lunch to even be able to meet the guidelines and allow the 10 kids on site.
It seems as we're going, we're finding more and more hurdles to jump over. So I would have to say that my motion would include the specialty camps, because we do need to give these people, we need to give them an answer so they can move on and continue their life.
Just a recommendation for the wording. You could say cancel all camps that meet the guideline as a camp as directed by the OEC. That way we're not
OAC?
the OEC,
Oh,
just the early childhood. That way there's no question about programs later on. They know the motion is whatever pertains, what the OEC considers a camp.
That sounds good.
Because nothing else is going to be allowed to run until the bans are lifted from the governor anyways, unless it's a camp. It's the only exception to the rule right now.
okay, so I have motion made to cancel all camps for 2020 that meet the guidelines for an OEC camp. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the motion on the floor. Do we have a second? I think we're all afraid to vote on this because we're all still so torn.
Welcome to my world.
I
So-
know. We can't vote on it without a second. Without a vote, we can't do anything. We're kind of stuck in the water, and we're no further than we were right at 7:30 when we started the meeting.
So let me throw this question out to Scott. And do you feel if we went forward with just a simple camp, 30 people, do you think you'll be able to get the numbers of workers to take care of it? And do you think you can have them trained in the time it's going to be when this camp starts to be at a level where they are thoroughly cleaning things, they understand the rules are involved and the guidelines are involved? There's a lot that's going on here. I mean, at Pfizer, we have chains of people that are making decisions based on this and going through the motions step by step. You have essentially like a month to get this on the ground and train people to keep at a level where everyone's satisfied with what's happening and avoiding contagion.
Certainly
Throwing the nail that you got a bunch of kids running around, right? So you have that added. It's like we're working with adults in a corporation, and you're working with folks that need to be trained and then also somehow keep kids in line during a camp. So I think that's really the question to you. I'm posing to you is like, if you think you can manage it, then I'm fine. I think supporting the community and supporting folks that need to go to work and need this daycare as an option, we should do it. But if you think this is going to be a major task that you're just not ready for right now this summer, then I accept it as that as well. But we'll have the rest of the year to plan for next year because this can happen again. But we'll have things in place. We'll have training documents in place and POC and modes of operation and protocols in place. Right now, it's like you're going to be winging it, which is what everyone's doing anyways. But I think there's a lot higher risk associated with kids. That's my thoughts. I don't know if anyone wants to inject in that.
I essentially, yeah, I mean, as much as I would love to have camp, I think it's possible, but I definitely have a lot of worries and would probably lose a lot of sleep this summer if we did have camp. I mean, my, biggest concern is the safety of those kids and the staff. And, it's a scary situation that we'd be putting them in. I'd like to say it's almost easier just not to have it. And then we can see what some of the other towns that do have it, how it goes for them, and then make the adjustments to do it the right way next year if need be. I mean, there's childcare options out there. I think the YMCA is offering a program, so we wouldn't necessarily be leaving them. There is options out there for childcare. I just think for what we stand for, it wouldn't be the right fit as a rec camp because we're supposed to have that fun experience that we're not going to provide. And it's the work. I think our efforts could be better used, like, for movies in the park or other activities we could do for the community that could serve the entire community, versus 20 or 30 kids. And then you're leaving all these kids without care that you would normally serve. I think it's almost fair not to offer it at all and then, you know, we're not running the risk of it, you know, thinking that we're confident enough to handle it, and then we're not, which is a big worry because it is a young staff. There's a lot of guidelines. Even myself reading through it, I'm overwhelmed. It's pages on pages on pages. Like this is memo number 18 right here, and that's just one place that we're getting guidelines from. So, I mean, I'd be more comfortable if we didn't have camp. I think it would be the easier route for us, and we could put our resources elsewhere, and you know, be more efficient overall.
That's what I wanted to hear. All right. Does anyone else have any input into this?
No, other than it's just not easy, right? We can't serve all ends. So I think, Scott, to your point, can we place our efforts in prep for fall activities, or Ken, to your point, working through the details for next summer? Or it's a tough one because the press is going to be out there. We're going to hear about it. Like, how could Ledger shut this down? But I think we've got to, Scott, really respect what's going on with you and the staff and the abilities. Because honestly, the blowback if we get this wrong is going to be worse than not doing it at all.
I wouldn't worry so much about the press because a lot of other towns have canceled their programs, so we're just aligned with what the rest of our local towns are doing. So I don't know that it's going to be viewed that negatively.
Yeah, I'm really not worried about that. Like you said, because all the other small towns have canceled. I mean, I think a lot of people are just expecting us to follow the lead, you know, with them.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'll second the motion as we have it written. So we've got motion made to cancel all camps for 2020 that meet the guidelines for an OEC camp. I mean, we can still have more discussion or we can vote.
No, I think Scott hit the nail on the head, and I appreciated his input because he's the man in charge, and it all comes down to him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have two motions on the floor. A second motion.
We've got the motion and a second.
Yep.
So we just need a vote then.
Those who want to cancel camp for OEC guidelines, can I have a vote? Yay?
Yay.
Yay.
Okay.
Any nays? Okay. Motion stands. We will cancel the guidelines according to the motions.
I want to throw out there that Scott and Monika, you guys are doing a really great job. This is not easy stuff to deal with, and keeping everybody happy and having to shut everything down. So, you know, thank you to both of you, and Lori too, please.
I second that.
Actually, just the FYI, guys, Lori is no longer with us. She is our new assistant tax collector for the town. So June 1st, we'll be hiring a new office assistant. Due to all this layoffs, she ended up getting a job there, you know, because it was, you know, she had a foreseeable future. We didn't know if she'd know when she'd be coming back here. So it was the right move for her. But so, I mean, that's another thing. We're missing a person going into summer camp.
Yeah, that's a big one.
But
I think, and yeah, like Lou, you said, I mean, Scott, I think I put it in one of my notes, just the scavenger hunts, all those little bits are going a long way. They are being noticed, and, you know, living right next to a park, I see, even my daughter was like, wow, there's so many more people popping into the park, which is, I think it's a great little, it seems silly little stuff, but it's going a long way, so.
Well, this is a relief off me because I'm stressed out enough about the parks. Now summer camp's one less thing to worry about. I've been on porta potties for the past 2 weeks.
Talking about porta potties, the fair's porta potties were turned around and are being used. We don't know who's using them.
Well, we've had multiple occasions where someone has defecated in the park, so we had porta potties delivered yesterday.
Yeah,
Excellent.
we were like, well, we're gonna have them pumped out.
Well, I think what do we have to adjourn, right? Someone has to call that.
I think
That's
so. We're
Ken.
good here, right?
Yeah, thank you guys for
I'm
the
on
chat.
board.
Guys.
Yep.
I appreciate it, and maybe we'll actually probably have a regular meeting, maybe like this, in a few weeks. And there's definitely a lot to discuss there that we can go through real quick. And it's summer now, and everything revolving around this whole situation.
Yeah, we could do a DEPTA meeting. Just make sure you put it in the.
Yeah, submitted ahead. The fields are looking nice, actually. I have to.
Really nice,
I have to
actually.
say,
Yeah.
I saw Tom. He didn't even say hi to me. He's like, "Have you seen the fields?"
Amazing what a little rest and some
Sounds like
overseeding
Tom.
will do, right?
Yeah, these are his full SWAT gear. But,
All right.
all right.
Fantastic. We have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
All right, guys.
All right.
Be safe.
Thank you.
Be safe.
Thank you, guys.
I got
Thank you, guys.